What drives our debt? They can ignore it all they want, but the reality of it is that our debt is being driven today by Medicare and Medicaid spending that's been structured in a way that's unsustainable. This is the part where politicians get nervous. Oh, Medicare, we can't talk about that. We don't have a choice. Let me tell you right now, there's no bigger defender of Medicare in this room than me. Medicare to me is not some government program I read about in a magazine. It's how my mom gets her medicine. It's the program that allowed my father to die with dignity a year ago when he was very ill. Medicare is not a theory for me. I live it. I help navigate it for my mother. We need Medicare. Medicare is going bankrupt. Anyone who's in favor of leaving Medicare the way it is right now, anyone who comes to you and says, let's leave Medicare as we know it. Medicare as we know it is going broke. If you are in favor of leaving Medicare the way it is right now, you are in favor of bankrupting Medicare. That's a fact. That's what we're fighting against. The president has no plan to fix Medicare. Their only plan with Medicare is to wait for Republicans to talk about it so they can attack us. The only ideas they have about Medicare are, let's just wait for them to come up with a solution so we can run these really clever television ads to scare seniors. Here's the sad part about it. If we deal with it right now, we don't have to change Medicare for the people that have it already. People like my mom, you can't go to an 80-year-old woman and say, listen, you're going to have to go out and get a second job. Or a job. You can't do that. We shouldn't do that. You can't go to people who are about to retire that have spent their whole life paying into the system with a belief that it's going to look a certain way and go to them and say, look, your Medicare, we have to change it. Sorry, we lied. You can't do that. We don't have to do that. If we deal with it now, we don't have to do that. The only people we need to ask to accept a different Medicare are people like me. I'm 40 years old. I feel 41, but I'm 40. That always works. Why does that always work? The only people we have to ask to accept a different kind of Medicare are the people like me that are decades away from retirement. And here's all we have to say, look, our Medicare is going to look different, and you have 30 years to plan for it. Is that too much to ask? Is it too much to come to me and say, look, will you accept a Medicare that's going to be very good, better than anything else in the world, but different from your parents? Are you willing to do that so that your parents' Medicare doesn't change? Absolutely. You come to me and say, are you willing to accept a Medicare that looks different? Maybe you'll have to wait a couple of extra years to retire. Are you willing to accept that? In exchange, we can protect your parents' Medicare and save the program for everybody? Of course I am. Do you know how much my parents' generation did for this country? Do you know how much these seniors did for each of us? Don't they deserve, this generation of Americans, to be willing to do that? I mean, is the great sacrifice that my generation is being asked to do is we're going to have to retire 19 months later than we thought we were going to have to retire? That sounds like a lot better deal than people that were asked to go fight in Korea or World War II or Vietnam. The men and women who built this country that we inherited. Is it too much to ask my generation of Americans to accept a Medicare that is still excellent, but different than our parents? It is not. We have to. And the sooner we do that, the better we're going to be as a nation. But November is a choice between a president that sees Medicare as a political tool to win elections, and us, the Republicans who understand that if we don't save Medicare, it will go away, not on our terms. And so, that's the choices on the debt.